Rashi will sometimes notice within the Torah that a name of God is used over here, and another name of God or a combination of the names of God is used over there. The first verse of the Torah says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. God, Elohim, created the heavens and the earth. But in chapter 2, in verse 4 of Genesis, Rashi will note or ask a question about why a combination of God's name is used. And that is to say, Eila toldot hashamayim va'aretz, mentioning the heavens and the earth again, when God was creating them, b'yom asot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim, that God was creating and making the heavens and the earth. And in terms of translating God in the English, doesn't bring out the full sense of the phrase we get here, and that is Adonai Elohim. Not like in verse 1 of chapter 1 of the Torah that just uses the name Elohim. Why the addition of the Adonai name of Yud He Vav He? Rashi will take from the Midrashic tradition of noting that different names of God describe different character attributes of God, and say at first God needed to invoke God's real sense of judgment, powers of discernment, of distinctions, of decrees, of laying down the law, of laying down the rules and ruling accordingly. Without that, how could there be any distinctions between day and night, between one species and another, between one type of tree and a flowering plant, between this type of animal and that kind of reptile, between man and woman? God sought to create a world of borders, boundaries, limits, definitions, particulars, and needed the power of deen, of judgment, of justice, in order to make the recipe. On the other hand, when God was in the midst of creating the heavens and the earth, and all was being formed and shaped, and God was making strict choices, decisions, putting limits, entered the power of compassion. And that is represented by the name Yod He Vav He, Adonai. The question Rashi begets is, doesn't it seem now a little bit more obvious to us why sometimes we invoke our powers of judgment before the powers of compassion kick in? Isn't that how God began the entire creation story? The question also is, when do our powers of compassion and kindness have to come meet what we generally look at through the lens of the power of deen, the power of judgment, strict judgment, according to tradition? In these ways, Rashi both acts as a commentator and informs us about why it's just Elohim over here and why it's Adonai Elohim over there. And he also stirs within us questions that we can look towards the Torah to help inform us about when it comes to our outlooks about the worlds that, of course, we are responsible to be at least partners in creating. Shabbat Shalom.